Heels at 5 yards is what we teach here. If we ever want to get into some bluff type things where we're pre-snap, we're trying to look like we're in a blitz type stance, toes at the heel line of the defensive line, inside foot up, aligned in my gap, stems and hides. Again, that's just a lot of these things here are based off player and his comfort level. You know, when I'm teaching guys about stemming and hiding and trying to just give the quarterback a pre-snap shell that's going to change when the ball is snapped. Every player is different when it comes to this. Some guys are uncomfortable aligning in a space that they feel like doesn't give them the ability to execute their job. Some guys are much more comfortable with that. So you got to know your player and just his mental makeup in regard to how successfully he can get that part done. And then again, keys, primary key. Like I just said, we key backs at the University of Houston. So our running back, or what we identify him as the cruiser. Some guys call him the sniffer, depending upon one back or two back sets, determines where our eyes are going to be. And then understanding flow. Is it inside flow? Is it outside flow? Is it zone scheme? Is it a gap scheme? We talk about those things every day. Secondary key. So we got a primary key, then we got a secondary key. When we talk about secondary key, our secondary key is, okay, my eyes are on that back, right? But now the quarterback just said hut, and then I underkey, my secondary key, I see a pool across my face. Those are the type of things that we talk about when we say secondary key. And then angle of departure ties directly into direction and flow, backfield flow. Fundamentals, talk about stance. We want our feet slightly wider than shoulders. Again, this is individual basis. I'm not a believer in every guy's going to get into the same stance. I'm not a believer in that. What I am a believer in is that you can cater a guy's stance to fit his physical makeup. And as long as it's sound, it doesn't have to look like the guy standing next to him. There's going to be some similarities. But everybody, and for me as a coach, it's more important to me that a player is comfortable in his stance versus him just getting in this stance that I'm trying to shove down his throat, trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So you got to cater that part really based off the player, in my opinion. But just some general rules of thumb, feet slightly wider than shoulders, weight evenly distributed on the balls of your feet, toes pointed straight ahead, great bend in my ankles, my knees, and my hips. I want a flat back. I want to hide my numbers. When I say hide my numbers, here's what I mean. If I'm in my stance and I can clearly see your number from top to bottom, then you're too high. You're too high. When I say hide your numbers, what I'm saying is if I'm in a good stance, then if I'm hiding my numbers, what I should see is really just the top of my number. I shouldn't see the middle to the bottom of it. And that to me determines your pre-snap pad level. And then eyes hard focused on my key. On snap footwork, read, run, or pass. It's important that we know with each call, is it a run call or is it a pass call? 85% of our calls on base downs are going to be run first calls, but then there's going to be some situations where it may be a base down, but tendencies say this is a pass. And so we may call a pass first call. Well, a player has to know that. Goes back into knowing calls, knowing situations. I have to make sure that they effectively know that between the meeting room and the practice field. Clear your cleats. Proper run pass footwork. Control your feet. You know, because we emphasize play fast, play fast, play fast, play fast, sometimes you guys' feet just get all out of whack. And so we work every day on just making sure I can play fast, but at all times I still have footwork and I'm under control. As long as I'm under control, I'll give myself a chance to make a football play, which is the ultimate result. Maintain proper pad level, eliminate wasted movement, false steps. Wasted movement, false steps, even just the slightest bit is the difference between a win and a loss. It's the difference between it's 3rd and 1 and I hit it for a 1 yard gain, or they got 1.5, or I got a TFL. All those things matter. All those things matter. Linebacker essentials. Continue on with fundamentals. Types of flow. Types of flow. Recognizing angles. Is it inside flow? Is it outside flow? Is it split flow? Is it a zone or is it a gap scheme? And right now we're talking about when you're defending the run. This is how we identify. I talk these things every day in film study. I talk them and I ask questions. One thing that the approach I've always kind of taken when in the film room and coaching and teaching is don't just give it to them, make them give it back to you. Don't just give it to the players, make them give it back to you. So once I've put it in and I've installed it and I've talked through the coaching points, then as we're going through the meeting and we're watching a cut up or we're getting ready to play an opponent and boom, here comes a play, I'll stop it and I say, okay, what type of flow is this? Is it inside or is it outside? They got to give that back to me. Is this a zone scheme or is it a gap scheme? They got to give that back to me. If it's a gap scheme, what type of gap scheme play is it? Give it back to me. I gave it to you. Now let me see you physically see it on film and give it back to me. That's how I know you have an understanding of what we're talking about. And again, types of flow we just talked about: inside flow, zones, gaps, ISOs, powers, outside flow, stretch, speed, sweep, split zone, split ISO. That's how we identify the different types of flows we get. Run fit concepts. Run fit concepts. I'm very particular in some of the words I say. So like, prime example, for me as a linebacker coach, I never say get downhill. I always say press the line of scrimmage. Because the one thing I noticed is I remember I was at a specific institution one time, and every time I said get downhill, get downhill, get downhill, the ball would snap and they went zoom. And so we never had a chance to defend play action. We never had a chance. Our feet were always out of whack if we got some type of counters or pulls or something that crossed our face. So I think pressing the line of scrimmage, just saying press the line of scrimmage, completely changed their mentality. And I started getting what I wanted. I don't want you to just take off like a bat out of hell going downhill. I want you to be under control and press the line of scrimmage. So if my heels are at 5 on the snap of the football and it's a run and I just got inside zone, I'm going to press that thing till I get to about 2.5 or 3. And now I still got some room to work. Know my proper fits, zone or gap scheme, clear and cloudy concept. Great eyes, hands, and feet will never get us beat. These things, my eyes, my hands, and my feet, are what I call our 3 weapons. And what we try to do is sharpen our weapons every day in practice through how we attack our individual and how I teach individual. Everything we do from an individual standpoint is something that sharpens my eyes, my hands, and my feet, which are my weapons, which allow me to be successful at this position. And then effort, pursuit. Number 1, pursuit eliminates big plays. Pursuit eliminates big plays. It doesn't take talent to play hard. It does not take talent to play hard. And everybody that's looking at this, I promise you, as I'm talking about this, you're probably thinking in your mind right now, you can remember a play. We all have them, where something was won or something was lost based off great effort or poor effort. So effort, pursuit eliminates big plays. It discourages your opponents. When you cut the tape on and you see your opponent and just immediately it jumps off the film that, oh my gosh, they play hard. That can be discouraging. That can be discouraging. So putting that on film, pursuit is a mental process, creates more opportunities for turnovers. 11 guys to the football every play. Tackling, eyes up, hat on the backside. Power foot in the ground. Uncoil my hips. Uncoil my hips. Uncoil my hips. I always want to make sure I tell guys this. When I'm at the point of contact on a tackler, I want to make sure that my hips are like a springboard. And so as I uncoil my hips, understanding my power is generated from my waist down. My upper body strength is just a complement of my lower body strength. So I always want to uncoil my hips. Club arms, grab cloth, motor feet on contact, run through the ball carrier. When we're in practice, and if it's not a live drill, what I always tell guys is when I fit up a tackler, when I thud a tackler, I want 5 hard steps. I want you to drive your feet in the ground for 5 hard steps when it's not a live period. because we never want to practice the habit of our feet stopping on contact. That's the worst thing you can do as a defensive player.